Right, today on the buy round, we are joined by none other than Michael Ennis, former NRL superstar, premiership winner in 2016, and now the best pundit in the game, in my opinion. I'd like to welcome to one of my all-time favourites, Michael Ennis. Thanks for joining us here on the buy round.
Absolute pleasure. What made you call it the buy round?
Because we've got no game.
Yeah. There you go. I knew there was something cryptic.
Yeah.
There's always been something cryptic with you. Yes, those long early morning drives to Canterbury were... Only we could have recorded some of those conversations, some of the things that go on in your mind.
Well,
I do like the name, though. I like the name.
Well, I appreciate it. I did say, I've got down here in my notes, is we've had plenty of practice.
Yeah.
Plenty of practice, and we did solve all the world's problems, and it was it wasn't just a football focus. It was politics in there. It
was good. It was nice to talk some other things other than footy, wasn't it? They were good times, those. I enjoyed those. I really did. I think it really formed our friendship, I think, you know?
Yeah, it did, Mick. And obviously before I moved closer to you, we did have a relationship before that. You know, as soon as I landed at the Dogs, you made me so welcome.
I think I've loved the game. And so I always and still watch the Super League. I love it, so I knew the character. I didn't know you as a person, but I knew what you were bringing to us, and I liked what you were bringing to us, and I liked what you're about as a footy player without knowing you personally. And once you got here, it was the whole package. It wasn't just the player. It was We built a pretty good friendship pretty quickly, and it was one of the really enjoyable times. I think we had a really good crew there. Mate, it's nice to see you doing well for yourself.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I think being a front rower, it's massively important to have a good relationship with your dummy halves.
Yeah,
like hugely important. I think if people like the relationships I've formed, and those long-lasting ones have all been with dummy halves. It's yourself, Josh Hodgson, James Roby, Cameron McInnes as well.
Yeah,
you're
right.
You've got to, Mick, because you're the first port of call for me. And we're together in the middle of the field defending as well.
We'll probably get to the grand final stuff, but people always talk to me, especially around Cronulla way, about the grand final and that moment with Fafita, and we'd practiced that. We'd practiced it thousands of times, and Andrew and I shared an incredible relationship. Andrew's he's a larrikin, he's loud, he's lots of fun, but underneath all that boisterousness was this incredible footy brain. And at the back end of training sessions, we would just walk around different parts of the field talking about how I could use him, how he liked to get the ball off me. And, in that moment, in the biggest moment of my career, when I looked up and seen him there, it all just came together. And you're right, those relationships, are formed on the field, but they're formed off it. And you're right, and I think some of my best relationships too, out of the game, have been with either front rowers, back rowers, or my halves.
You've really narrowed it down there.
Well, you don't spend I've got great mates that were outside backs, but you tend to build relationships with your big blokes through the middle as a dummy half. The trust that I had in guys like Luke Lewis and those blokes on edges were really important, and then the constant conversations and game plans and stuff always came from the dummy half and halfbacks.
On that, just thinking about that play with Fafita, you have an enormous amount of trust in him.
Yeah.
Because at that moment, you could be forgiven for thinking you've got to get the ball in there, in the other key position players' hands, like ASAP.
Well, I spoke to him when Will Chambers scored. We were talking about how we had to get back in the game. Very rarely, and very rarely when Melbourne get in front do they get run down, particularly through that era, with the blokes that they had in their team. And I knew Andrew was important to me. And, we spoke about, we'd gone away from what we'd set out to do that night, and that was to go through them. we started to try and, I think we led 8-0, I think it was. We probably should have led by more at half time, but we started to look for that final try, that cheap try. We started to try and go around them and look for cheap points to try and ice it and be further enough in front. And, to their credit, they came back, but I knew if we were going to go back through them, it was going to be Andrew, Matty Pryor and Gal, those blokes that were pivotal. But Andrew, and I say it respectfully, Andrew was a guy that I could trust catching in collision.
Yeah.
And as a dummy half, that's really important. You've got to, you said trust.
Well, you can't turn that ball over cheaply, can you? Because then the spotlight is on you. Why did you pass it to him?
Well, because that's when you work so hard to get to that position on the field, and particularly in grand finals, if you turn over cheap ball, you might not get another chance in that position. So you've got to nail that moment. And I saw Munster in the line, who was the fullback, and I knew Andrew was... Munster was young at that stage. Yeah. Andrew was big, athletic, and in the prime of his career. And so I just looked up and give him a nod. I knew I was coming to him. And he made very few errors, Andrew, in collision. I could go deep into the line and play short to him without any fear that he was going to make an error.
Yeah.
And I reckon I probably only had a handful of guys throughout my whole career that I could do that with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like you got the best out of your front rowers. I know you certainly got the best out of me, but it wasn't just on the field and in the car. There was some things that, I don't know if you remember this, used to send me a text after a game and compliment me on what I'd done. And I can just remember thinking, I want to go and do that again for this man. Like, where did that stem from? Is that something you just did naturally, or is that like, okay, I need to?
It certainly wasn't planned. I think it was just more out of. There was just certain guys that I played with that I think often their work went unappreciated. Some not unappreciated, but at times the result became so focused on. And sometimes in a loss, there were still great performances and there were still great moments and important team moments that sometimes get, they get glossed over because you get beaten. But I always appreciated, effort. I always appreciated effort and hard work. And, I think, if I was sending you a text like that, then it was because there was a moment in a game that maybe in review that our coaches may have missed, but to me it was important. And I don't know, I just feel sometimes that was an important part of a relationship as a teammate, to let your teammates know when you appreciate what they've done. Yeah,
well, it certainly was appreciated, and it had a lasting effect on me, mate. It's
good.
Something
I didn't realise that.
Yeah. No, well, it's true. I can remember just being like sat at home maybe after a game, a couple of whiskies or whatever it may be, and just mixed text. Feel valued, feel appreciated.
Yeah, well, sometimes probably if it's said straight after a game, there's so much going on. There's either details from coaches or physios, and the results still so raw, and whether it's emotion of winning or whether it's that pain of losing, that sometimes you don't process things. So, sometimes you get back home and you sit on the lounge yourself and you just think of a moment, or you're thinking of the game. Often we didn't sleep for hours after the games, because the adrenaline is still, running at a huge rate. And it takes so much time for that to come down, particularly in those late games that often you'd be there watching telly and, 2 in the morning sometimes.
Those Friday night games are not good for you.
Yeah.
And your sleep hygiene whatsoever, are they?
No.
They really aren't.
And I think, it's such a unique time because it's probably the one time where you're actually sitting there at 2 a.m. and the world's asleep, but your mate's up.
Yeah.
Because we've just done the same thing together. That we're all in the same boat.
Yeah. It is. It's a strange aspect of our sport.
Yeah.
One I don't miss though. That knowing I want to sleep and not being able to.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
It really is horrible. before I got to these shows, and then even while I was here, you were known a bit as Ennis the Menace. We think to the High Marsh fight, the Viking clap, but what I think you did, you looked to get under the skin of the opposition, and there's a fine art to that. Can you tell us about that? I guess that intricate, darker side of the game, and why you thought it would. Well, I think it did benefit the teams that you were in.
Well, it's a strange one to try and explain because it was never pre-planned. You know, people always thought that I would look at the team sheet during the week and go, all right, these 3 blokes I'm going after this week. And it was never the case. It was just moments in games where, things were unfolding. And look, at times, it was probably detrimental too, mate, But at the other times, I was in the game.
Yeah.
I was in the moment, and
But it's a fine art, and not everyone can do it.
No.
And it's effective.
Well,
it's the game within the game, I believe. Or one of many games within the game.
I loved everything that came with the game. I love everything that came with the game. I think as a young kid, I always admired, guys, like the characters of the game, and not just like I'm talking guys like Merv Hughes running down onto the boundary, breaking into, his stretch and having the whole crowd behind him, cheering him on, moments, where Ricky Stewart and Benny Elias and those blokes were, so ferocious in terms of their will to win, and I loved guys like Mark Geyer, and when he took on Wally Lewis at Origin, and I loved the battle.
Yeah,
I loved the battle. I loved everything that came with it, and sometimes it, that was part of it for me because I was in the game, and
it's a way to win because it diverts attention too. I think it does. I know, you have your plan, you practice, but then sometimes you one of the things you fail to prepare for is that emotional response. Like I know I've been caught up in a number of moments during my time, but that you could help provoke an emotional response that may distract a player away from his role.
Yeah,
and divert attention from the other, the other key players in your team.
And often you found that if it was their key player, like if you went after their key player, like you talk as a front rower, you had so much passion towards your teammates that if someone upset or went after one of your teammates, then you're almost just out of your natural instinct, you wanted to get them back. You wanted to make life difficult for them because they targeted your mates. So you take, for example, like say for example Cameron Smith, when I, give him a rub on the head after he'd made an error. Well, for that next 10 minutes, Jesse Bromwich and Asfa Solomona and Jordan McLean, they wanted to kill me. Because he was there. He was their guy to protect. He was the mastermind of everything that Melbourne did. And so then that opened space for Fafita and Matt Pryor and those guys, because when I was getting out of dummy half, they were just launching at me. And that then gave me an easy option to be able to create space for the big guys. So there was an art to it in some degree, but it was never pre-planned.
But it certainly diverts attention. And get you off your focus, get you off your game. Like, the plan is to defend the middle. Well, actually, I'm going to scrap that because now my priority becomes I want to get in this. I'm going to make this personal. Perhaps to the detriment of the team goal.
It's interesting.
Well, you did mention it previously about some of those players that you'd put on for your forward because you were an incredibly skillful, intelligent, crafty player as well, that I can remember you as. But I think, would it be fair to say during the late years at Canterbury that got taken away from you?
We just had a certain style. at Canterbury. Now I'm not sure if that was because that's what worked for Desi when he was at Manly, and when you have success like he did, you have a game model that you trust and you rely on. And for him to be able to come to Canterbury, and we had very skillful forwards, yourself, Greg Eastwood, Sam Cassiano, guys that had incredible hands for big men, and so that was a big part of our attack. And we built a lot of our game plan around that because it hadn't been done a lot. It hadn't, those sort of types of shapes had been used occasionally, but they weren't the centrepiece of the side's attack. And I think given where we'd been at Canterbury in 11 before Des got there, everyone was pretty disappointed. We'd had a really good year in 09, really good year under Kevy in 09, and then for whatever reason it didn't work out those next 2 years. But Des came in and had his game plan, and all of a sudden, with everything that Des brought, we just accelerated and had a great season. Everyone bought in, and the environment was great. It was new, it was fresh, and it was exciting. And probably in amongst all that, I'd just been named captain, and that was a big responsibility for me. It was something that I took really personally and something that I really loved. And so I didn't want to be that bloke that sort of stuck his head out of the sand and sort of went, hey, why am I not being able to play to my natural game? And to me, that was selfish anyway, because I wanted the team to have success. And it probably wasn't for the first 12 months to 18 months that I started to realise how much my game had changed. Under Kev, I had great freedom to be able to, attack and run. And, with Des, it was, a lot different to that. And we were winning, so it seemed selfish to say, hey, well, I feel like I'm losing my game here, and it didn't feel right to have those conversations when the side was performing. We made a grand final. I still think we should have won that grand final. In a lot of ways, I feel like we created so many chances, but looking back on it, it was a great grand final, and Melbourne's detail defensively to be able to shut down those plays and unsettle our attack. There was times in that first half where, we were a pass away from putting on 2 or 3 tries. Yeah. But I think it was Siskawaka that jammed in a couple of times and unsettled a bit of our attack. So, you tip your hat to Melbourne. That was, well executed, but it was a great season for us there. And, to say anything or make any selfish remarks about my game or where it was at just didn't feel right, didn't sit comfortable with me. I felt like I had a job as a captain just to be captain and lead the way, in the other areas where I could be effective. And then, there's no doubt looking back now, when I got to Cronulla, I probably didn't realise that I was as stale as I was. That I'd invested myself so much in Canterbury, in the club, and doing a good job as captain, but I had really lost my love of the game that I had, as a young kid growing up in Newcastle. I grew up as a 5'8", got moved into dummy half sort of around that, 14, 15 years of age, so and still when I went back and played my local club footy, I still played 5'8", so I had that's probably where I developed those ball playing skills, and that ability to get out and create was something that I got great enjoyment in. I loved being active out of dummy half, and Shane Flanagan just gave me this. Yeah, he just gave me this great confidence that
it was almost like a license to.
Well, I just thought
to give you the responsibility to make the plays.
Yeah, well, I remember having a conversation with Flano, when I first got there. I said, mate, how do you want me to play? and he said, I just want you to be you. I want you to play, and we'll adjust to you. And it took me 3 months. The first 3 months of pre-season, I was really clunky. It was almost gone, mate. Like I'd almost forgotten how to be that creative dummy half. And then I think towards December, like those final few sessions towards December, it all just started to fall into place. And that was, I remember heading into that Christmas break with this feeling inside me that I hadn't had for years. Yeah, I was so excited about the season ahead and the combinations that I'd started to develop with my front rowers and my edge back rowers, and just the freedom that I was playing with at training in the sort of scrimmage sessions. And you know, like what you sort of just said before about those text messages that I would send you, you know, Flano would send me one after a session. I'd be sitting on the lounge at 9 o'clock at night and he'd just say, you know, love what you did today, you know, and it was those things that just made me find that love of the game again.
Just thinking, you know, to any young aspiring key position player, like this doesn't just happen naturally. You've got to work on your craft. You've got to sharpen your toolkit, don't you? Like you there just speaking about the experience, it took you 3 months to get it back. Like the importance of just continually practicing it, experimenting, not being afraid to fail.
Yeah, that's the key, mate.
Like, you know, if you jump out to your short side and you got Luke Lewis there and you put a little kick in for him and it trickles dead. Yeah. Like, that's not the end of it?
No, and that's the key. That's the key. You're going to have days where you absolutely leave the field frustrated and that you have failed. It's
an execution thing. It's not
But you've only failed in the expectations that you put on yourself for that day.
But you failed execution-wise, but not. It was the correct play to do. It was on. Yeah. You backed yourself that it's on, but perhaps you just put a bit too much toe on it.
And then I think that then falls onto the coaches and, you know, some of the other key players around it too, by not putting them back in their shell, you know, being too hard on, you know, guys in key positions in that regard. There's times where they've got to get it right, but at the same time, you still want those guys to be able to make decisions on the field that can be the difference. That can be the difference, and to play with that freedom. And, you know, I'm seeing it, you know, at the moment, you know, with a number of key guys. Like you look at Nico Hines at Cronulla and Craig Fitzgibbon, who's a young coach who no doubt wants instant success, but he hasn't come there and turned Nico into that traditional number 7 that just sits behind the ruck and steers the team downfield and then all of a sudden kicks the ball on the last. He's touching the ball 2 and 3 times a set with great freedom to go down a short side if he wants to take it. If he wants to throw a long cutout pass and skip back across the ruck to the right-hand side to Moylan, he's allowing him to do it. And that's what makes Cronulla so unpredictable at the moment, you know. And
he's an artist, Nico Hines.
Well, he's unique, and he hasn't tried to make him something that he's not comfortable being. He's allowed him to be that roaming number 7, and it's working because the guys around him are trusting him. And that's part of being a team, isn't it?
It is. I'm just going to slightly pull back a little bit and go to a couple of moments at Canterbury.
Yes.
First one. Do you remember that time when you got penalised for not putting your arm over in the scrum?
Yes, I do. So I used to have to wear that seatbelt brace because I'd had a shoulder operation, and it was actually connected to your opposite leg. And I think Gavin Badger was the referee at the time, and he had a laugh because I actually physically, because I had some dramas with it. Like, he just wanted me to get my arm up and over the thing.
And you couldn't get it, and he actually he penalised us.
I think he did penalise us.
No, he did.
Yeah.
He definitely did. Because I remember everyone, what's that for? So he didn't get it. He didn't buy him properly. I'm like, just it's underneath. But that's when you know the referees are out to get you.
Yeah. We had some fun. The referees.
But what, like seriously?
Yeah.
Come on, Badge. I think we need to get an official apology. That is a joke of a penalty.
No, look, he probably had people on his back about, there's always people wanting, the traditionalists wanting the scrum right, and maybe I could have got my arm around better, I don't know, but
Yeah. Another one, I can remember this moment as clear as day. I was having a spell. We're playing South Sydney. Whoever dropped, we'd conceded a restart set, and whoever dropped it out just planted it right on top of Sammy Burgess.
Yeah.
And he's running and that, he's hold the ball. And I remember being on the sideline just thinking, oh no. This, he was running like a freight, like a high-speed train.
Yeah.
Not a freight train, a high-speed train, but with the body of a freight train. What can you, just for the listeners, I think it's always really interesting to go back and to, to try and explain what you were thinking during that moment.
Yeah, I'll never forget that moment. And it probably goes back to that mindset that you put yourself in to play at that level, to play at that elite level. And as a smaller guy, you always had, the big guys coming at you. But that was a unique moment because I was so isolated. And he just locked the ball, I think, in his left hand and just eyeballed me. Often other guys would, be looking at other ways and come off their left foot and try and square you up. But he just had blinkers for me. And it was a moment that was... it was a moment where I knew that was my responsibility for that side as a leader, as a captain, to try and set the tone for our side, because we had great battles against South and we had great history against them, and he was their Braveheart, wasn't he? And he was a ferocious and tremendous player, Sam. And I remember as the dropout sailed up and as he caught that footy and looked at me, I thought, all right, I've got two options here. I can get out of the way.
Well, you're not going to choose that.
Oh yeah, or I can have a real crack here. And there's been moments in my career that are defining. One is as a young kid watching Danny Badiris in State of Origin when a kick got a kick off downfield and Shane Webke caught the ball on the dead ball line, and Danny Badiris had sprinted that hard on his own and met Webke about 2 metres off the try line just to show his teammates how invested he was. And that was my moment. That was my moment. That I was, again, so isolated, and I had no other option other than to accelerate to the contact and try and make a difference.
God, I missed those games were good, weren't they?
They were rippers. I always look forward to that South game. Yeah, the Good Friday games, the semi-finals. We played a prelim against them in 12. That was a big game. Yeah,
we actually had Dale on the other day, and we were talking about that. The time you tackled Sam in a different occasion, but he tackled you off Sam.
Yeah, and we looked up. We both were on the ground and looked up, and Sam had gone straight through. Benny Barber saved us that day.
He did. And another moment that was incredibly difficult at the time was the injury. The injury before the 2014 grand final. It was heartbreaking. I know you'd invested so much. You captained the club. You'd been pretty much injury free from the whole time I was there. I think you had a rest one week, maybe, perhaps.
Yeah.
How was that for you on an emotional level?
Yeah. It was extremely painful. It was really emotional. The club meant a lot to me. You guys meant a lot to me, and I knew that my time at Canterbury was coming to an end, and that was still raw. I never wanted to leave Canterbury, but I understood it, and I came to terms with it. And in the end, at the same time, I was excited about the move to Cronulla, but in that moment, we had fought really hard. I think we'd had a great win against Melbourne in week 1.
We did,
which was to me one of the greatest executions of a coaching game plan that I think I'd been involved with up until that point in my career. I had a couple under Shane following that, but that was, up until that point, it was one of the real detailed game plans. They were so hard to beat down there, and we didn't just beat them, we really beat them. We went against Manly the following week, and Manly had a few players out, and they were courageous, Manly. I think Hocko drilled the field goal to get us through, but I'd had a moment in that game where I think I tried to read a Foran or Cherry Evans banana kick back inside and had sort of missed the ball, and I think they scored something along those lines, which didn't sit well with me. And then when we got that result and won it was a bit of relief, because I didn't want it to end. I wanted the show to roll on. And then when we played Penrith, I knew we were a real chance of beating Penrith, and it was about 5 or so minutes before half time, and me and Frankie Pritchard went into a tackle, and Frank sort of, I think, got wrong-footed, and so his body swung round and landed on my foot, and I'd never really broken a bone in my body. I'd done 2 ACLs and had like shoulder and neck injuries, but I'd never broken anything other than a finger playing, and so it was a bit foreign to me, the feeling, but I knew I was in trouble, and I grabbed Steve McCulloch, our physio, who's a great bloke. And I said, I'm in trouble here, mate. I said, something's happened. And we were really lucky that for that next 5 to 6 minutes, we were pretty much defending our line for the whole time leading into half time. And so I didn't have to travel far. I was literally only moving, 10 metres at a time at most. And, by the time I'd headed up the tunnel at half time, I knew that something severe had happened, and then at half time we tried to get some needles into it, some painkilling injections, and it just had no effect at all. And then I knew in that moment that was it. I knew that was it, and the hard thing was I knew you blokes were going to go out and get the second half done. I even was at the back of the huddle, I think, when you guys were talking before you went out, and I just knew how focused we were, and I felt something really galvanising and building. It had been an incredible final series for us, really, given that it hadn't been the best year, but we were getting it right at the right time. Yeah. And had some genuine momentum, and guys were in really good form. As it panned out, I had scans that night and got the results first thing the next morning, and that was it. That was the end of it.
Yeah.
I still remember on the Thursday, I think it was, or it might have been the Wednesday night, I remember sitting on my lounge at home, and I had the crutches and the boot, and I'd seen all the media about, this is a G up,
I remember.
It's Desi at his best, playing ducks and drakes, and that he'll play, and I just thought something came across me like, maybe I can, maybe I can, and so I took my boot off and went out the backyard and just tried to run, and it just collapsed on me, and I just went, that was it. And it was actually a pretty lonely moment. It was sort of 9:30 at night out the backyard of my house, and just knowing that was it. That's when it really hit me that I wouldn't play for Canterbury again, and that was hard. Because I loved it, and my family loved it. And I'd met so many great people. There were so many good people in the club. I'd made so many great friends as players, but also, people that had had a big impact on my life and on my career.
Yeah, it was a tough week, Mick.
It was.
Because we were travelling in together, weren't we? And I can remember a few. Well,
yeah,
I did all the driving, obviously,
Yeah.
as per usual.
yeah. It was quite a week. Normally, as we said off the top, we had some good chats and some laughs and some.
I remember pulling into Joe Bell's cafe that we used to go, and obviously the people at Belmore were just out in their droves, and it was great. And you were just like, mate, get me out of here.
Yeah, and it was different. By the time the grand final came around, I'd really processed it, and Simone drove me to Belmore to catch the bus with you guys. And we were driving down Burwood Road, and there was a big house party, and the guy had a big poster the whole way down his glass window of me.
I remember it, yeah.
And I said to Simone, pull over. And so I just got out of the car in my crutches and went into his house, and he had probably 50 or 60 family and friends there having a big barbecue before they watched the grand final. And I just went in and spent sort of 5 or 10 minutes with them, and it was all just processing that was it. And it was I think by the end of it, I found some, prior to the game, prior to the result, I was confident you would win. But by that stage, in terms of the build-up to it, I'd processed that I wasn't playing, and so I thought I'd just take in the week and enjoy the back end of it. And part of that was the fans, because part of the fans at Canterbury, they played a really big part. For all those times where people sort of did, get stuck into me, I suppose, about being that competitor, being Ennis the Menace, and hating me, in those moments, when I played their team. Those Canterbury fans were as rock solid as ever.
Yeah, they loved you.
Yeah, and I still get great enjoyment driving through Canterbury. It was a wonderful club, and it's been hard to watch them the last couple of years get back to, go through what they went through. But it's nice to see them now starting to come out the other side, and it's good.
After that, you leave and you go into pastures new. We all know the outcome. I can remember seeing your face after it.
Yeah.
Can you? But I do know a few stories in the build up to that. Can you tell us about the captain's run the day before the grand final?
It was probably one of the worst sessions that we'd had. The week before, Shane took us to the Sydney Footy Stadium for a captain's run before we played the Cowboys. And then, we had that luxury, I suppose, being a Sydney team, that we could go and do that. And then when we got to the grand final, we thought, you know what, we'll mirror last week, and we'll go and train at ANZ Stadium. And it was really windy, and I reckon we hardly completed a single set the whole day. Yep. And it was quite eerie how poor we had trained, yet still how confident we were, and how we still made light of how poor the session was, because we were just so we were so tight. We were so tight as a group. It was crazy. Poor old Sasai Feki, I reckon he probably dropped 6 or 7 balls that day.
Oh, really?
And we were just, half consoling him, half laughing with him, just telling him that, it'll be fine, and we knew the conditions would be different, It was sort of middle of the afternoon. The wind's always up there, I knew that from playing there, but often when you play there in the night time, that wind sort of starts to die off. So by 8 o'clock, I knew that we were fine. And he had a great game. He was a wonderful player. It was a fun week.
Can you tell us a little bit about did Shane set something up with a character coming into a team dinner?
He did. He did, and I think it was a real important. It was really smartly done by him, because we had some guys like myself in my final game who had won a premiership, Gal who hadn't been there, Luke and Chris Heinington that had won premierships in their first season as kids that had never been back there. And for the majority of the other blokes, other than James Maloney, Benny had been with us. He'd missed out in 12. It can be a really intense week. It can be a really intense week, and as the week gets closer to the big show, guys can really tighten up. And Gal hated highlights videos. He just didn't like that type of build up to a game. He didn't like it, and we respected that. And so we just would go for dinner. We'd all go for dinner the night before the game together, just to get out of the house, just to be together. We always loved being together, and we had some real characters and that on our coaching staff. And we were sitting upstairs at a restaurant just down in Cronulla, and no sooner had we sort of got halfway through our meal, had Darren Carr, who does all the ventriloquist stuff, came in and just started taking the mickey out of all of us senior blokes, and just.
But did you know who this guy was or not?
We did. So that was the grand final night. The Genius was the one before.
Yeah.
We went into the prelim final. So we'd gone. Oh. That was the prelim final where you've got me now on his name. Now a couple of us. So that story, like Darren was unreal. Because he got Steve Price up, because Steve Price had organised and Flano had organised the bloke the week before, and so part of the carve up was grand final. The night before the grand final was that the ventriloquist got the mask on Pricey, our assistant coach, who had played a lot of jokes on blokes through the year, and so that brought great humour to the group and really lightened the mood seeing him, sort of berated and torn to shreds in front of the group. And but the week before, I can't think of his name. He used to, lovely bloke, used to go on the footy show, and he's an older bloke that plays. He plays a drunk, and so we're all sitting there. And I think probably only myself, Gal, and Luke Lewis and Chrissy Heinington, the older blokes, would have potentially ever seen him on the footy show back in its heyday. And again, we're in the same restaurant, and we're eating and laughing and joking. Anyway, this bloke stumbles in, plays the drunk bloke, alcoholic bloke, unbelievably. Banging into walls, into tables.
And this is like a private...
We're in a private room. Yeah, it's all just the staff and the players. Now, he's got on this big old jacket that's got an hockey strap as his belt, holding his pants and his jacket in. He's got like tyre marks up the back of his jacket like he's been run over. Mate, and just unloaded on myself, Gal, Luke Lewis, mate, just basically broke the ice for all the young guys. Just give it to the older guys.
And you're just sat there thinking, like, who's this?
We're laughing our heads off.
Yeah.
But for guys like Valentine Holmes and Jack Bird, they're going, who's this bloke that's just come into the function? And Pricey's played it beautifully, because he's saying, Flano, you want me to get rid of this old bloke? You want me to drag him out? And Flano's like, no, mate, he's just a local fella. Just let him go. He just loves the Sharks. Just let him go. He's all right. And so the younger blokes are going, far out. We just let him go here. He's just tearing shreds off me and Gal and Luke Lewis. And then he starts unloading on the coach and staff and James Maloney. And, mate, it was one of the great moments. And for our young blokes, there was just a period of 40 minutes that completely took them out of that pressure environment that is so suffocating when it comes to sudden death prelim finals.
Yeah.
And just completely lightened the mood. And so we put the heat on Flano the following week. Kenny Graham's his name. Just come to me. Kenny Graham. He was a character. we sort of said to him, mate, you got something big, you got to come up with something good now. Like he was outstanding. And so Darren was fantastic. Yeah, he was great. I spoke to Ricky about Kenny, and he came in and did the same sort of thing for the Raiders the night of the grand final. And again, they whether it has anything to do with it or not, I don't know, James. But it just this. In that such intense environment, it's nice just to have a laugh sometimes with your mates and yourself often when your teammates are, particularly the older ones. The older ones almost get left alone by the coaches sometimes. Not often are they called out in a team environment. And so for a comedian to come in and just unload on some of those older blokes can really break the ice for the young blokes and just take them out of that environment for a while. And I think for us older guys too, it was a great distraction. Yeah. It was a really good distraction.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And like you say, you don't know how much of an impact it had on the result. And I guess you'll never know, but...
Yeah.
You guys won it.
You look back and it just... it forms just part of the theatre of that week. And
all the subplots.
Yeah, and it was such a great time, mate, just for the fact that I'd been through it. Before, I think at 32, I was just in such a great place to be able to take the week in rather than worrying about the result the whole week. You just take it in. Like, the night, the afternoon we sat at the Opera House, the two teams come together and there's a lot of festivities around it. The relaxed environment that Shane had provided for us and the friendships and the bonds that we'd built, we were ready to go. We were ready to go, but at the same time we were so relaxed and calm. Even the day of the grand final was such an enjoyable day. It wasn't stressful, and I know people probably listen to this and go, well, that's because you won, but take the result out. The actual build-up from the moments where you wake up at 2 and 3 in the morning and then struggle to get back to sleep because you know it's coming. But from the moment your sort of feet hit the ground at 7 o'clock in the morning, the whole day was just a great experience. It was just a great experience. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you certainly capped it off as well.
It was such a... there was a moment where we came down, and when we got to round 1 of 2015, Shane did a jersey presentation for me. I think I may have been the only one wearing the Sharks jersey for the first time, and so they have a team lunch. And he said to me, what are you hoping to achieve, in a Cronulla jersey? And I said, and it was really fresh for me, the Canterbury stuff. I said, there's nothing like bringing the bus down Belmore Road after a prelim final, knowing you're going to a grand final. I said, I'd love to see this club and you boys get to experience pulling the bus out here on Tarrant Point Road on grand final day, and I'll do everything I can for that to happen. Now, whether it was going to happen or not, it was irrelevant. That was my focus. I wanted that. That's what I wanted out of the time that I had at Cronulla, was to be able to do that. And so when we got on Tarrant Point Road, we come, for anyone that's been to Cronulla, there's a massive big set of lights there. And we hit the red light there, and there was all kids waving their flags, and their mums and dads and all that were there sort of cheering us out of Cronulla. And it had gone all the way along sort of Shark Park there, and all the way sort of through. It actually went all the way almost to Menace, the amount of Sharks people that came and lined the main road. And that was when I actually got really emotional there, because I always sat at the front of the bus, and Luke actually would sit up the front with me, and he put his arm around me. He said, "You all right, mate?" I said, "It's just starting to hit me, that this is it." I said, I don't want to fucking lose this one. And he just looked at me, and he was such a winner. He was like you, mate. He was such a winner. He said to me, "Groove, we won't lose this, mate." He said, "You wait till we bring this bus down this road in about 5-6 hours' time." And it was an incredible emotional experience where all the nerves just left me. They just left me, and I don't know how or why. It was just an incredible moment in my career where it was, I don't know. It was just, I had so much trust in him as a player and in our team and our staff, and it wasn't until that moment that it actually really hit me that, now we could have lost that, mate. We could have lost that. Melbourne had their chances too, but he was spot on. He was such a winner. He went out there and won the Clive Churchill, and he was right. Bringing that bus down that road at 1 or 2 in the morning was unbelievable experience. Unbelievable experience. Yeah, I think, they're good times. They're good times. Yeah.
Mick, onto the now and a bit of the future. You already did a little bit of stuff with Fox.
Yep.
While you were playing, you transitioned into I guess a full-time role within the media. How long had that been the ambition for?
Well, it was, I've been very lucky that George Mimas, who had looked after me through the majority of my career, he said to me when I was about 25, I think 26, he said, "Mate, how would you feel commentating?" And I laughed. I said, "Oh, mate, I'd have no idea." I said, "I'd love to do it." I said, "But I wouldn't ever know where to start." And I thought he was thinking like courses, some sort of media training. The next Saturday, I called an under-20s game in that was back then. It was called the NYC, and it turned out to be the best thing. Just getting thrown in the deep end. I had no idea. Guys like Matt Russell, who are still commentating now, were doing those junior games, and the learning from them was fantastic. And so at Canterbury, we played a lot of Friday night games. I was always really clear that my preparation and my focus for the game was important, and I wouldn't let that be disrupted. And Fox were fantastic with that. So if I played on a Friday, then I would often call a game either on a Saturday or a Sunday. At that stage, Fox had only really had a Wednesday night show called NRL on Fox, an hour show. Other than their Super Saturdays and whatever. And so that was really the only chance to go on there. I went on there a couple of times, but it wasn't until NRL 360 really sort of got underway that, Steve Crawley and Patrick Delaney have been huge for me in terms of, that transition period out of the game, which is difficult at times. And I've been very lucky to have their support. They gave me an opportunity when I got to Cronulla, and I think it probably wouldn't have worked at Canterbury, but it worked at Cronulla, and I had the opportunity to go on there on Tuesday nights and do the players' night, which you do, and I did that with Benji Marshall for those 2 years, and then I just decided when I was in that midway part of that 2016 year that I just didn't feel like I was going to be. I didn't feel like I could be a better player, and to be able to sustain the effort that I built my game around. I never probably had the ability of Billy Slater and Greg Inglis and those guys, but the one thing that I always did was I worked my ass off to try and get the most out of myself, and that it got to a point where I didn't feel like I wanted to go through that anymore. I wanted to be able to spend my Saturday mornings watching my kids play sport and not have that moment where a dad walks past you and go, "How do you reckon yours will go tonight?" And then for that next 10 minutes, I completely, whilst I was present at my son's game or my daughter's dancing or whatever it was, I wasn't there. And I just had enough of that. I'd had enough of those times, and I just went, and I had a really good conversation with George and with Wayne. Simone knew where I was at. She knew how I was feeling, and obviously with Shane, because we'd actually just prior to that been through the process of extending my deal at Cronulla, and for me that was probably, I think, given how things ended at Canterbury, or how that was at Canterbury, it was so nice to feel wanted and feel like that I was, part of their plans moving forward, and I was playing well. I felt like I was playing really well. So I think that novelty of that contract negotiation, once we came to the agreement, I actually looked at Shane and I have so much respect for him and what he did for me that I knew that I would have been playing for money, and that wasn't what I didn't feel like I didn't want to do that for a bloke who had given me what he'd given me in those 2 years. I didn't want to walk in the change room after the games and not have that same burning desire to compete for him, and that I was playing for the wrong reasons. And so, I decided that it was time to go into the media. And at that stage, I knew that Fox had sort of said that they were interested in giving me an opportunity. We'd obviously gone. It was almost perfect timing, mate, to be honest, because they just launched the full-time channel. So they'd taken on a lot more content into what they were doing, and it was awesome to be part of it. And it's been fantastic. I absolutely love my job,
Matt. And you're amazing at it. Like I said on the intro, I think you're the best pundit that's out there. I
appreciate that.
But I as well as I do. Perhaps for the listeners, they don't. I knew what you were like as a player. Like your preparation was meticulous. Like you would work back from game day.
Yeah.
And there'd be that routine almost for maybe 2 or 3 days before, and then even in the week you'd be certain that you'd always weigh in at a certain way.
Yeah.
It was very structured, very regimented. And then what you saw in the field was the end product, but people don't see what the amount of work that goes into that. Is that the same for your TV work and how you articulate yourself?
Yeah.
Your research on new and up and coming players. It's not an accident that you're so successful.
No, well, again, I listened to your podcast, which was great with Wayne, and he has those things that just. Sometimes you'll just say something that just sticks with you, and Steve Crawley in particular had said the same things, to me, where, if someone asks you something, people are paying, to have Foxtel, and, they don't want to hear you say, I'm not sure, I don't know. They're expecting you to know. They're paying money and they're working hard, and so you need to make sure that you've done the work to be able to. And you're not always right. He's not saying you've always got to be right, but you've always got to be prepared. And part of that's having an opinion or being able to analyse certain moments or games or players. And so that always stuck with me. That always, that to me was a moment where I went, I need to be prepared here. I can't get on TV and say, I don't know, if someone, because you don't have control of the conversation a lot of the time. Things are coming at you randomly and things change real quickly. And the other thing he said to me was, I don't want you to ever be vanilla. People don't like that, and some people love you, some people hate you. Some people will agree with you and some people won't, and that's okay. But you need to be prepared to have an opinion, and I don't feel comfortable having an opinion unless I've done the research.
Yeah.
And so I put a lot of time into it, but I enjoy that. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy, you mentioned the young guys. I love researching the young blokes and seeing what's coming through the game. I love the game, and that was whilst back to my point before about my conversations around retirement, I still love the game. I still loved it. I just didn't want to play it.
Yeah.
I just, and I still am now. Like I'm, well and truly into my media career now, but I still love the game. Like tonight I've got the Panthers and Souths and I'm going to commentate and I'm genuinely excited. I wake up today really looking forward to my job tonight. I can't wait to see what Latrell Mitchell does. I can't wait to see, how Sean O'Sullivan, tries to mastermind an incredible win again without Nathan Cleary and Jerome there. I love that. I can't wait for the battle between the big blokes. So this is the time of year we all love it, don't we?
Yeah.
It means something.
Well, it's that that turn in the weather.
Yeah.
And it feels like finals.
Yeah, you can. People laugh about it. You can smell it. It's in the air. It's finals.
You can. You do.
Yeah.
You know. Like there's
Yep.
a bit of an increase in
Sun's
the temperature.
a little bit hotter.
And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
it's.
Players get a little more tense.
Mm.
Yeah, we clear out the 8 teams that haven't been good enough to get there, and we were playing for something.
Start to get serious.
Yeah,
Well,
it's good fun.
it is. You do have a bit of a coaching role as well.
Yeah.
How much of the time does that take up?
I really enjoy that. I feel like that. That's really probably helped my commentary too, just to stay relevant. I love getting out on the grass. There's just something, as being a young boy, I've always done it, and you'd be the same. There's just something about when you walk out on that grass, you feel comfortable, you feel at home, and I still feel that. And whether it's coaching an under-12s team or whether it's, working with an NRL side, and I've been really lucky. I've always had a great interest in coaches. Always had even from a young age, I would gravitate towards my coaches. I love their maturity and their knowledge of the game, and I found found a real excitement in that. People always sort of joke with me and go, "Oh, you played at some number of clubs, and I go, "Yeah, I did, and I got to work under some of the best coaches. From a young age, I had Michael Hagan, Michael Hagan was very important to me as a coach. He gave me my opportunity in first grade, and I thought he was a great coach. And along the way, I've had guys at that club level where I've had Wayne and Des and Shane Flanagan, and I played some of my best football under Kevin Moore. And then obviously. Nathan Brown was another one, and then in the Origin level, I got to work with Craig Bellamy, which was fantastic, and Ricky Stewart, which was great. And Ricky and I have maintained our relationship, and I was lucky enough to work with him over the last couple of years as a coach, and I've been blessed, mate, to be able to draw on some of the game's greatest coaches and their knowledge, and I really enjoy it.
On a bit of a lighter touch.
Yeah.
What do you like to do sort of outside the game? What are your hobbies and your interests?
I get great enjoyment watching my kids play sport. I love it. Yeah, it's one of my favourite parts of my week. I love that. I'm a pretty simple man, James. I like my golf. I've got back into that. I played a fair bit with my brother when I was a kid, but then obviously when you have the young kids, it's difficult to go and just take 4 hours out of your day and go and play golf. But they're all they're all in school now, so particularly over the spring and summer when footy season finishes, I try and get in. 1 or 2 days a week playing golf. I find that great enjoyment in that, and that again, that's that bit of a challenge. It's that challenge that we miss a little bit. Mate, you can take me for a walk, mate, down the beach and have a breakfast, and no, I'm done, mate. I'm happy for the day. There are little things like that. Yeah, take a towel and go and jump in a rock pool and go and get a coffee and go for a walk. We're pretty blessed with where we live. Yeah. It's those simple things that I sound like an old fella now, but I appreciate them a lot more. It's
just looking out and
just
people watch, gaze.
Yeah. Just, what it's like with 4 kids in the house. Sometimes just that bit of quietness and just sitting and not talking and just looking around and seeing what's going on in the world and having a coffee, taking it all in, and it's.
What about in the off season? I guess I've heard it summarised before as having a role within the media. You're a little bit like a coach without a team, and like I spoke about is. As a coach, you never switch off. Even in the off season, you've got enough to deal with. But for you in that sort of prolonged off season, what do you fill your time with? Do you have any side projects going on? Is there any other avenues of work?
Mate, look, to be honest, I reckon it takes 2 or 3 weeks to properly unwind from the season, genuinely, because of the amount of time and effort that you put into it, and. I reckon it takes a good couple of weeks to actually really distance and switch yourself off from it. At the moment, I've got a program at the moment which I'm doing with some young kids. As I said before, I find great enjoyment in those junior ages that are really passionate, the young kids, and love their footy. And so I've just, for the first time, I've put an academy together. I'm going to train them, the boys. We've picked 20 boys from all around Sydney. We're going to train them for 6 weeks, and then we're going to fly to Queensland and play against some teams up there with. My theory behind that was that, a lot of the kids finish their primary school football. There's avenues for them to be able to play representative primary school football, but really from that period of 12 to, 14, if around that sort of 14, 15 mark where NRL sides start to put together, development squads and things like that. There's a real gap, and there's some kids that are really passionate, and talented, and there's not often a lot of avenue for them through that period. And I just went, what, I'm going to, these kids there's just no ego. It's just all passion.
It's love.
They just love the game, and that to me is refreshing. And so I can't wait for that to start. I'm really looking forward to that.
And this is the first year you've done that?
This is the first year. So I just started with one age group. I didn't want to try and bite off more than I can chew. And it's been a big process sort of putting it together, because I wanted to do it well. I'm a bit of a perfectionist like that. I didn't want to start something that wasn't going to be done to the best of my ability. So I've had some really good help with some people that have helped me put that together. And we kick off in September, and 6 weeks of training for the boys, and they're all really excited. So we've had them together, and they've all met each other. They're all from different parts of Sydney, and they'll form some friendships, mate. That's why we're sitting here today. They'll form those friendships that I hopefully end up like ours, and whether they go on to play first grade or not, that's irrelevant.
It doesn't matter, does it? No,
it's not
what it's not what it's about, is it?
No, it's about giving them an opportunity.
And an experience as well.
Something that they haven't had before, and something that hopefully continues to ignite that flame. I'll never forget when I got my first letter to go to a Knights development squad, and
it's something these kids will never know. Like that.
Well, it's not
that anticipation of getting a letter,
and when you're surrounded by like-minded kids, and you come into that environment where everyone's talented, they can really quickly find that lifelong passion. There can be a simple moment like that where they go, this is what I want to do. And when the teachers or the external people say, can't put all your eggs in one basket, it's true. But you can also ignite a flame and a passion of something that these kids should be encouraged to chase their dreams. And if I can play a little role in that, then I look forward to it.
Yeah, that's quality, Mick, and if I can help in any way.
Yeah. We'll definitely get you down, mate. I think the boys would love to have you down. So
no, I'd love to, mate.
Luke Lewis and Shane Flanagan and they're going to come down and help out with the kids and stuff. So it's going to be unreal.
What dealing with these kids? What sort of coach are you gonna look like more? You're gonna be a Desi Hasler on one of those. Why are you gonna let them walk to their water bottle?
You know what? At 12, as I said before, sometimes I just when they stop training, you listen to the conversations that they have, and it just it's refreshing. As I said, it's all fun. It's all fun. So I want to provide a program where we can really advance and upskill them. From what they would, normally get an opportunity to get. But at the same time, we're making sure that it's a really good environment, lots of fun for them. I think that's the one thing that I learnt, particularly at the back end, that the environment plays such a big factor in your enjoyment. And, that's something that I think is important as a coach, and it's even something that I try now with when I'm working with the guys that I'm working with at the top level, that you build that relationship and you try and provide a trustworthy and an honest sort of environment where they can have some fun with you, but at the same time you can still give them the right information and critique if you have to.
And a little bit, when you're an impressionable 12-year-old, you want to do the right thing, you want to have fun, and you can teach them a few little things like, you don't walk to your water.
You're right there, mate. They're the things that when
you can really instill it at that age about, standards and things you're going to look to
2 years, 3 years time when they go and lob up for their first day at Penrith, Parramatta, the Roosters, wherever they get picked up from. They walk in and they shake the coach's hand. Introduce themselves. As you said, they know how to train. They know what's expected of them. They know those little finer details where the coaches turn around and go, "Whoa, there's something in this kid."
That's quality, mate. I'm looking forward to seeing how that progresses, and
feels good.
I genuinely would love to come and have a couple of sessions and try and just give them a little bit of knowledge.
You're always welcome, mate.
It'd be awesome, mate. We'll keep those. We'll definitely do it.
Who knows, mate? In 10 years' time, they may be carpooling together, telling the same stories that we were telling.
Oh, that's brilliant. Well, Mick, I've got one final question.
This is dangerous.
It's not too dangerous. I just wanted to know. Most of the listeners or the viewers out there would not be aware of this, but on pretty much every Canterbury away trip, on every aeroplane we went on, we would organise a birthday cake or an announcement on a plane about it was Michael Ennis' birthday. Why didn't you like it?
I didn't like being the centre of attention, James, in the middle of a public aeroplane, nor in a public restaurant. Did I find any humour in you and Josh Reynolds' shit jokes? All right, when I was just trying to be sensible, when I was trying just to have a couple of hours of being sensible.
I can remember one time you got legitimately pissed off. I think it was on an airplane. And I don't know, I can't even remember the result, but you weren't happy with it.
Timing's everything, James, isn't it, in life?
Just a passenger announcement. Congratulations to the Canterbury Bulldogs. It's also the captain, Michael Ennis' birthday, everybody.
Looking around and seeing you and Josh Reynolds snickering from 30 rows back in a plane.
Mate, but see, my thing is, you shouldn't have allowed us to know that it affected you so much, because then we would have...
part of the theatre.
Yeah, all part of the theatre.
It's part of the
theatre. Well, Mick,
anything that gave you and Josh enjoyment, deep down I was happy to be part of.
Yeah. Deep down. It's good to know that deep down you liked it. Well, Mick, I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I really appreciate you coming on to the Buy Round, giving some insight. You had fantastic stories. And all the very best with the future. I know the type of person you are, what you stand for, what you're willing to do. You're going to be a success, whether that be, a 20, 30-year career in the media, or perhaps your head might get turned into coaching, I don't know, or the academy might explode. You just don't know. This could be the start of something huge. So I
appreciate that, mate. It's always good fun. Always good fun to see. Thank you.
Brilliant.